Chinese Coast Guard ships and a Chinese Navy helicopter harassed a group of Philippine fisheries vessels, conducting a scientific survey in a hotly disputed area of the South China Sea, forcing them to cancel the operation, the Philippine Coast Guard said Saturday. Beijing has repeatedly claimed sovereignty over most of the South China Sea and accused encroachment by rival claimant states, including the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia. China has demarcated its territorial claims with a 10-dashed line printed on maps, but has not provided the exact coordinates. The incident happened on Friday near Sandy Cay, 3 small uninhabited sandbars flanked by an artificial island base of Chinese forces, and a Philippines-occupied island in the Spratlys archipelago, according to the Coast Guard. Chinese Coast Guard ships approached 2 larger vessels which maneuvered to avoid a collision, and a Navy helicopter flew low over 2 smaller boats deployed by the ships, forcing the survey to be called off. The Philippine boats, however, retreated after a law enforcement Chinese Coast Guard statement, which said they were driven away after entering waters without China's permission and tried to land on the Cay, called in Chinese as Tiexian Reef, and do sand sampling. Videos from the Philippine Coast Guard show what seems to be a Chinese Coast Guard ship sailing very close to a vessel officials identified as belonging to the Philippines. In another video, a Chinese military helicopter hovers low over the rough seas next to a vessel flying a Philippine flag. The latest flare-up in long-simmering territorial disputes in one of the world's busiest trade and security passageways is testing President Donald Trump's promise to keep the United States as a counterbalance to an increasingly assertive China in disputed waters. His predecessor, Joe Biden, then in office, strengthened an arc of security alliances in Asia in a bid to curb China's aggressive actions in the South China Sea, East China Sea, and around Taiwan, a self-governed island which Beijing has vowed to take by force if necessary. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in a telephone call Wednesday with his Philippine counterpart Enrique Manalo, discussed various issues of mutual concern, including the People's Republic of China's dangerous and destabilizing actions in the South China Sea. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said. Rubio conveyed that the PRC's behavior undermines regional peace and stability and is inconsistent with international law, Bruce said in a readout of the call. Rubio underscored the United States' ironclad commitments to the Philippines under our Mutual Defense Treaty. Bruce said Biden and his administration had repeatedly warned China that the United States is obligated to help defend the Philippines, its oldest treaty ally in Asia. If Filipino forces, ships, and aircraft come under armed attack, including in the South China Sea, China has warned the United States to stay away from what it says is a purely Asian dispute. In 2017, China accused the Philippine military of planning in secret to occupy and build a structure on one of the 3 sandbars, about 2.5 nautical miles, or 4.6 kilometers, from the Philippine-occupied Thitu Island, 2 senior Philippine officials told the Associated Press at the time. China protested and encircled human-made sandbars in the area with 3 Navy ships, a Coast Guard ship, and 10 suspected militia ships, according to a confidential Philippine government security report seen by the AP at the time. Chinese and Philippine diplomats resolved the issue by agreeing that forces from both sides should not set foot on the sandbars, the 2 Philippine officials said. Chinese ships, however, have kept watch off the sandbars ever since, according to the Philippine military. Meanwhile, the Philippine Coast Guard said it has been ordering Chinese Coast Guard ships to stay away from the Scarborough Shoal, another disputed area about 124 nautical miles, or 230 kilometers, off the northwestern Philippines. The Chinese Coast Guard ships have approached as near as 60 nautical miles, or 111 kilometers, from the Philippines coast in recent weeks, well within the country's exclusive economic zone, a stretch of water where a coastal state has exclusive rights to tap resources, but where foreign ships have rights of innocent passage as provided under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, the Philippine Coast Guard said. The Chinese Coast Guard has refused to pull out from the area, which it claimed is within Chinese waters. It called on the Philippines to immediately stop all infringement activities, provocations, and false accusations.